How does diversity impact firms? Why is there a gender pay gap? Economics can speak to issues relating to diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. I'm Professor John List, and this is Economics for Everyone. Can economics speak to diversity, equity, and inclusiveness? Our answer is unequivocally yes. Let's consider a simple question. Why should an organization, such as a firm, value DEI? There are many reasons, but economic models have tended to focus on two. The first one is social preferences. You might also think about this as equity. Everyone deserves a fair chance. Social preferences are important, but the economic model predicts that such preferences take on less import as their cost increases. You might recognize this as the law of demand. The empirical evidence supports that prediction. This is why the second reason for a firm valuing DEI has taken on great importance: economic efficiency. There are two sides of economic efficiency. The first one is, as you can guess, the demand side. Customers or shareholders demand DEI, so firms respond by supplying it. The other side of the equation is the supply side. DEI firms might have a lower cost to produce. DEI firms might have better innovation or new products. DEI firms might have better survival chances. Now, if we dig a little bit into this notion of survival, we have to revisit our biology class. Biologists teach us that ecosystem resilience is the ability of an ecosystem to absorb changes and return to the same equilibrium state after a temporary disturbance. Ecosystems with higher species diversity tend to be much more resilient. For our purposes, diverse organizations might be more likely to contain people who confer resilience to the organization because as the workplace accumulates different types of people, there is a higher chance of any one of them having traits that enable the firm to adapt to a changing environment. This by itself increases the firm's chances of survival. In the past few decades, economists have done lots of work to try and understand DEI-related topics. Questions like, do organizations function better with more diverse employees? Do more diverse firms make higher profits than less diverse firms? Do employees at more diverse firms have greater job satisfaction, suffer less mental illness, or have greater meaning of work? Are all employees treated fairly? One question that has arisen in this area concerns pay and asks, why is there a gender pay gap? If you analyze mounds and mounds of data, what you will find is that men earn about 10 to 20% more than women. Many reasons emerge as to why there is a gender pay gap, and I will mention four. The first one is human capital differences. The years of education and the type of education differ across men and women. The second is labor market attachment. Women tend to take time off after childbirth much more often than men, and this causes their future wages to be depressed. The third reason is discrimination. Studies have documented gender discrimination that leads to lower wages for women. The fourth reason is gender differences in preferences. Men typically ask for raises more often. They might take on riskier actions and jobs which tend to pay more. On this last point, there is some work that suggests men tend to prefer jobs where there is competition in the workplace, and that alone leads to the gender pay gap. A natural question then becomes, why are there competitive differences between men and women in the first place? The literature and popular press are filled with potential explanations for these differences. Some argue that nature or biology is the most important factor. Others argue that socialization or nurture plays a key role. These differing views led me years ago to formulate a simple hypothesis to dig into the nature versus nurture debate. On average, in every society, men are more competitively inclined than women. To test this hypothesis, we visited two distinct societies. The first society was patriarchal. The Maasai society in Tanzania is a place where age, cattle, and men dominate the Maasai social structure. The plight of women amongst the Maasai is such that wives are said to be less important to a man than his cattle. The second society we visited was matrilineal. In the Khasi society of India, the Khasi husband dwells in a household in which he has no authority or property and has no social roles deemed important. If you visit a Khasi household, it will be the wife who will do the entertaining, while her husband remains silent in the corner of the room. In each of these societies, we had men and women take part in very similar experiments to those previously conducted in the Western world. We wanted to explore competitiveness and other features such as propensity to take risk and bargaining ability. Guess what we find? Well, the first pattern is that behavior in the patriarchal society in Tanzania closely follows patterns in the Western world. Men are more competitive than women, they take more risks, and they like to bargain more than women. But what about in the Khasi society, where women are a major part of the societal structure, and they've been leaders from their birth? Now the tables are turned. In our experiment, we find that women are more competitive than men, they take more risks, and they're more likely to bargain. They are the major breadwinners, and the gender pay gap is reversed in the Khasi society. Why do we find those results? One speculative interpretation of many is that the Khasi society removes social barriers that prevent naturally competitive women from expressing their true personalities. Another interpretation is that Khasi society allows competitive women to earn greater rewards in the labor market, and they can pass on their wealth and their genes to their daughters. In either case, we can all agree that these results need to be replicated and that further treatments need to be carried out to detail the underlying structure at work, to dig even deeper into the nurture versus nature debate. So there you have it. This is just one example of economists' exploration of DEI-related questions. Economists continue to address important questions to develop our understanding of DEI, and that's because economics is for everyone.